Hey everyone, welcome to Patriot Soapbox, where I give you my commentary on this today as reported by Wall Street Journal. First up, job growth is up in the U.S. as 266,000 jobs were added last month. So for those liberals who say Trump's not doing a good job with the economy, better check the job figures again. Unemployment is now 3.5%, which is much better than anything it was during the Obama administration, where the worst it ever got was 10%. I mean, that's bad. And no, it's not Bush's fault, it's Obama's fault for meddling in the economy. So there you go. Also, there's one article entitled "The Wages of Sin Would Give Boost to GDP," talking about how, like, U.S. gross domestic product, or really pretty much every country's GDP when they measure it, but they only include legal activities because it measures like the total final sales output, like, of finished goods and services made in a country. So, like, if the U.S. makes something overseas, that doesn't count to their GDP. But if a foreign company makes something in America, that counts towards America's GDP. But they don't include, though, is illegal activities like gambling, drugs, prostitution, etc. They don't include that, and most countries don't actually in the GDP. However, if the U.S. did, it's estimated that it might rise by a percentage point every month if they include that in GDP. So that's a lot of money if you think about, like, adding, like, an extra percentage point to our annual GDP. That's a lot. So it tells you that maybe illegal stuff in the U.S. is more rampant than we thought. And for the record, the reason why there's, like, this is related, why there's so many, like, Latin American countries that are essentially narco economies, meaning they based in their main economic boost is drugs, is because the U.S. is a huge market for drugs. And here's something that liberals need to understand when they want to ban drugs, or when they want to ban guns, or conservatives when they want to ban drugs. When you make something illegal, they make any product illegal, be it drugs, be it guns, whatever. You can make pencils illegal. You know what the only difference is between an illegal and an illegal good? So, like, a regular market and a black market thing? Price. Illegal goods are just more expensive. So really, the cost of stuff like drugs and illegal guns would drop if they were legal because it'd be easier to get them. For an illegal good, you have to bypass the authorities, and because of that extra work, they can reasonably charge a higher price, and people will pay for it because, it's drugs. Once they're addicted to it, kind of hard to get off them. That's why we have rehab. So yeah, drugs are sort of a boost to Latin American economies, and Americans will buy them. So maybe if we did somewhat of a legalization, like made it like same category as medicine, like, you have to get a prescription, you have to be an adult, like that kind of thing, or maybe just like you have to show that you're 18 or older with your ID before you buy drugs. Maybe that would actually probably cripple the Latin American economy because the cost would plummet, and so they could be devastated by that. But some countries are all, like in the European Union, for example, are already starting to include, like, illegal activities in their gross domestic product. But the problem there is that when trying to compare it to other countries that don't do so, it's sort of a false statistic almost, because the example gives, like, say France doesn't include illegal activities in their GDP, but Germany does, then the German economy will be bigger than it really is in relation to the French economy, or in relation to the American economy, etc. So maybe we should include illegal activities in GDP, because legal or illegal, it's still an economic boost. And that's what GDP measures. It doesn't measure legal activities. It shouldn't measure just legal activities. It should measure everything. So we get, like, a real estimate of the economy. Also, the NSA's mass surveillance of Americans' phone calls and emails and whatnot. Now both parties hate it. I mean, both parties have pushed it when their party's in power, but now neither of them like it. And what I find fascinating about the NSA is that they have a 1 yottabyte data storage facility. Now, if you're not up to date on on your number prefixes to make numbers larger, like megabyte, gigabyte, terabyte, 1 yottabyte is about, I don't remember the exact number of zeros behind it, but, like, I don't know how many 1 followed by however many zeros it is, but I do remember that 1 yottabyte is about everything that's ever been written. Like, every piece of data that we possibly have on Earth, that all fits in there, with a little room to spare. So they want, like, when they say mass surveillance, they mean mass surveillance, like, really massive. Next up, the the Democrats are or because Kamala Harris has exited, there's now only two instead of three black candidates on their side, and now they're kind of mad because apparently it affects their diversity or whatever. Which, first of all, I find it's funny that the Democrats obsess so much over diversity now, given that they're the party that enshrined slavery and Jim Crow into law. But whatever. I mean, they've changed. I mean, it's been a while since then, so who knows? Maybe they have a change of heart. Although I don't think they've had a change of heart because they seem to obsess over race so much that it makes me think that they're the racists, not Republicans. I mean, though I know Republicans aren't racist. I don't think all Democrats are racist because really that's a pretty heavy charge actually. So I don't like how it's tossed around by the political left because it means like if you're a racist, it means you believe that someone is inferior or superior to someone else by virtue of how they're like the color of their skin. No, I don't. I honestly don't think like I think like hardly anyone is that stupid or that evil to think that. Like hardly anyone nowadays. Like it's 2019. How could you be that evil or that stupid? But apparently there are some people who are. But I think like on the one hand, having that quote unquote like diversity as far as race and gender goes, it could be a good thing because because if you have more of those people in office, then you have more like from their politicians who like know that what's like to be a member of that group. So on the one hand, I see that advantage. But on the other, I'm in favor more of like a merit based system. Like I don't approve of affirmative action. It's reverse discrimination. I mean, they're trying to right. It's like paid. Like two wrongs don't make a right. So, I think we should just move on from all of that and have a merit based system. Like I don't care what the color of the skin is of a presidential candidate or any politician. Really, I care what's in their brain, not what's on their skin. Right? I mean, if they have good policies, I'll vote for them. Or if I think they have the best policies of anybody. And if they suck, then I won't. The guy I vote for anyway would be say a white man, a black woman, whoever, as long as they had good policy, right? That's how I think, at least. And apparently, not everyone else thinks that way. Then and it's also a concern for the Democrats because it means like the four front runners right now, Sanders, Warren, Biden, and Buttigieg are all white. So, I mean, you got one woman in there and you got a gay man in there. So they check off some of the the victim boxes on the Democratic Party. He's a victim list. But it's apparently not enough victim boxes, so whatever. And now it appears that like there will be no minority candidates who will qualify for like the primary debates because like as they're going higher and higher, as they're doing more and more debates, they're trying to tighten the rules a little bit. Like they increase the percentage of support you need in polls, increase the number of donors you need from the increasing number of states. So they're making it harder and harder, which is a good thing because it whittles down the field. Then there was a shooting. For those who didn't know, there's a shooting at a Florida naval base. Three dead, 8 wounded, and the shooter was a Saudi apparently. Given that and the fact that the 9/11 perpetrators were Saudis, maybe we should be keeping a watch on Saudi Arabia along with Iran, right? Because like they're still not that great apparently. Also, I said the other day that the government was considering sending 14,000 more troops to the Middle East. The Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, said, no, we're not doing that. So, good that we're not sending more and more people to the Middle East, because that's just a waste of money, people, time, resources, etc. Then, over the op-ed section, there's one entitled, Why Utah has become America's economic star. Because for the past 12 years, Utah has been the most economically competitive state in the union. Why? Because they reject pretty much every progressive policy there is. I mean, it's a state full of deeply conservative Mormons. And, like, well, that's kind of redundant, so whatever. But yeah, the Beehive state, because, the Mormon, essentially, like, their version, like Christians have, like, the cross, Muslims have the crescent and star. Their little symbol is the beehive, because, like, everyone's a busy bee for God's kingdom. So, yeah, they're pretty conservative. And I've been to Utah. The one example of a liberal policy I saw there was the gigantic amount of bike lanes in Salt Lake City. Like, I don't think, like, even Boston doesn't have that many bike lanes compared to Salt Lake. But that's all we got there. I mean, they have first of all, they have, like, the natural advantage. Because, like, I mean, it's dry as hell and hot as hell in the summer, like, which is why I went. Probably a porch. Maybe I should have gone in the winter. When skiing's a big thing in Utah. But really, it's still a beautiful landscape. I mean, they got rolling red mountains, beautiful deserts, cacti. It's a pretty beautiful state actually, and also they have a pretty low flat income tax and corporate tax below 5%. And so for those who don't know, the flat tax means that like in the U.S. like we have the U.S. federal income tax is a progressive tax rate. I mean like the more income you the more money you make, the higher percentage of the income you pay. So like an example of progressive tax would be like let's say like a country had a tax code where like if you made 20,000 or below, you paid 5% of your income. If you made 30,000, if you made between 20,001 and 30,000, you pay 10%. If you made between 300,001 and 40,000, you pay to 15% and on up. That's a progressive tax rate. The more you make, the higher percentage you pay. A flat tax is where you pay the same percentage. No, it's like not the same dollar amount. It's not like okay, everyone pays $10,000 in taxes. It's the same percentage. Like so, they make 20,000 or 100,000 or 1 million per year. You'd pay like say only no matter what you pay like 10%, or no matter what you'd pay 20%. That kind of thing. So Utah, the tax rate doesn't increase. I mean, obviously the rich people pay more taxes than like a rich person would pay more taxes than a poor person, but a rich person still pays the same percentage of his taxes as the poor person would. That's how it works. They also don't have a death tax, meaning you don't have to flee to Florida to escape it. When the rich people retire, they keep the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. They also don't spend a whole. I mean, they have like their property taxes. Like they fund actual like municipal services like schools and publics and the police system, but really compared to other states, they don't raise a whole lot of money for public services, which is like on the one hand you think well, that's ridiculous. You need a lot of money to fund these services, right? I mean, yeah, you do need obviously public services need money to operate, but really, it doesn't. And as California, New York, and Illinois have shown, more money for public services doesn't mean better public services. Not necessarily, at least. They got like for example, like a lot in the school system, a lot of that money like compared to other states, New York and California have really well funded schools, like incredibly well funded. So like Maryland, Rhode Island, Illinois, etc., much better than conservative states. But a lot of that money is lost in paying teachers who like for all those teachers who complain about being underpaid. First of all, you can choose another job, and second, when you factor in like all the benefits and pensions that public sector employees get, they're generously overpaid compared to like, equivalent private sector posts. Also, they have in Utah they have right to work laws, meaning that you don't have to join a union, and if you're a worker, and it's not like they don't feel undersatisfied at all apparently because they out of all 50 states, Utah is second on the happiness rating. Second, they're the second happiest people in the country. You know who's the only one that's happier? Hawaii. I mean, it's a freaking archipelago. It's incredibly beautiful landscape, beautiful beaches, all that stuff. So, I mean, how could you be miserable living in Hawaii, right? But, okay, Utah comes in second. And so maybe so contrary to what progressives say, maybe rejecting progressive policies, except for the bike lanes, I guess, is how you become a great state. Heck, if I was in a school, maybe I should have moved to Utah. But I like living in Massachusetts because that's where my college is. So, yeah. I can't commute from Utah to Massachusetts daily. That'd be incredibly expensive and probably impractical. Next up, there's at the NATO summit, Trump criticized Emmanuel Macron for not repatriating French ISIS fighters. On the one hand, I think when I first read that he said that, I was thinking, what? Why would you want them back? They're ISIS fighters. But then again, if you have them in your country, if they're loose elsewhere, then they can come back in the country and cause problems. But if you repatriate them, you can lock them in the clink or rehabilitate them so that they're not a threat anymore. So really, I think it's actually it might actually be a good idea. I mean, the U.S. has repatriated about 23 people thus far from America who joined ISIS, and they're currently some are jailed, some have been rehabilitated, whatever. So I mean, obviously these people should serve pretty long sentences if they're actually if they willingly joined ISIS, but if it was say a parent who joined ISIS and they brought along their old kids, that'd be wildly unfair to the kids to not let them back into the United States because they're kids. They had no choice. A toddler or a baby can't even comprehend the whole the whole Islam Christianity fight. Like they don't have that mental capacity. It's not fair to like judge them for the mistakes of their parents, right? So I think so if they're in the U.S., if we keep ISIS fighters in the U.S., keep them in the prison, keep them in a rehab center, whatever, then at least they're not elsewhere causing problems. And finally, as apparently free college has already been tried in the U.S. in New York. The New York City College is once called like the Harvard of the proletariat because it was a pretty good school but pretty cheap. I mean, they had no admission fees, but they did have like admissions tests. So like you didn't have to pay for school because it was tax funded, but you still had to prove you were smart. However, they tried an experiment, like an open admission experiment, when after minority students protested saying there weren't enough minority students, they're like, all right, fine, let's let everyone in. It didn't go well because once you take away admissions tests, you take away an incentive to learn. Like kids, like studies have shown that like kids, like if they don't have to do a lot of work, they won't do a lot of work, and that's true for like pretty much everyone, whether kids or adults. So by lowering the standards, they lowered the overall like intelligence and scores of students in school. So free admission and open admission like that is not a good solution to the college issue. That's all I got for you in this episode of Patriot Soapbox. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great daily content.